The truth is out there. Knowledge is power. This is the Prepper Podcast Radio Network.
Are you sick and tired of having your First Amendment harassed or censored on Facebook? Use no more, as we now have a new alternative to Facebook. It's called Awareness Act. Awareness Act is a social network designed for patriots, to be used by patriots, and is ran by patriots. Stand up and help in the fight to protect your constitutional rights. Patriots can create pages, blogs, videos, documents, articles, and so much more. We even have a unique news feed system that allows you to share, read, or connect with any patriot on Awareness Act. We are a dedicated tool for patriots to use against the tyranny our Constitution is facing. So if you're tired of having your rights infringed upon, come check us out at www.awarenessact.com. Again, that is www.awarenessact.com, the social network for patriots, not potatoes.
Whether you take me for the fool, I know that I can be. Whether you see me eye to eye.
Are you storing food? Many preppers are storing food for months and years, but only have enough fuel stored for days or weeks. Stretch your fuel storage by harnessing the power of the sun with a sun oven. Food can be baked, boiled, or steamed at temperatures of 360 to 400 degrees Fahrenheit with the power of the sun. Depending on where you are located, you can use the sun for 50 to 80% of your cooking, allowing you to preserve your fuel storage for rainy days. Sun-baked foods stay moister and have less shrinkage and don't burn. Sun-baked roasts are tastier and more succulent, and sun-baked bread has unparalleled taste and texture. Water can be heated in the sun oven for purification or personal hygiene. For the past 25 years, sun ovens have been proudly made in the U.S. They are durable, have a long life, and come with a 100% satisfaction guarantee. For a discount coupon, email podcast@sunoven.com. That's podcast@sunoven.com.
Have you ever wanted to generate your own supply of electrical power, even save money on your electric bill? If so, this is going to be the most important message you will ever hear. Solar power generators are now available. These emergency backup systems provide life-saving electrical power when you need it most. Unlike gas generators, a solar generator runs quietly, emits no fumes, and produces electricity from the sun. It's like having an electric power plant running quietly in your own home. Run sump pumps, shortwave radios, computers, and even keep your food from spoiling. Whether it's hurricanes, ice storms, brownouts, or blackouts, you'll never suffer through painful power outages again. And here's the best news, a remarkable fall truckload sale going on right now that gets you $1,700 in bonuses when you buy a solar generator. To find out why solar generators are the best generators and get $1,700 for doing so, go to falltruckloadsale.com. That's falltruckloadsale.com. Generate your own supply of electricity. Go to falltruckloadsale.com. That's falltruckloadsale.com.
This is KPRN-DB, broadcasting worldwide from Southeast Oklahoma, USA, to parts unknown.
You are now listening to the Region 10 Report on the Prepper Podcast Network. This show is brought to you by OccupyCorporatism.com and your host, Susanne Posel, giving you the real truth behind the news.
Thanks for joining us. I am your host, Susanne Posel, Editor-in-Chief of OccupyCorporatism.com, and I want to introduce you to my co-host, David Posel.
Hi there, this is David.
And let's give a little background about Occupy Corporatism. Started about a year ago. Mm-hmm. I'm a stay-at-home mom, and I homeschool the children, and I just got sick of being lied to by the mainstream media. So I decided to start a website. I called it Occupy Corporatism, not in in favor of Occupy Wall Street, but just that if you look on the internet, everything is incorporated. Your city, your town, not just the Walmart and the big box stores that you go to, but everyone, even our government is incorporated.
Even the police department.
Yes, check it out, folks. Your police department is a private security firm hired by the city or state in which they reside. Their contract is up annually, and they bid for new contracts. And when they hire a new security firm, that's usually when you see a big change or shift in the police department. They get a new chief, they get new police officers. But anyway.
And they write a lot more tickets about the end of the month, which is interesting.
Right, because they're generating revenue for your city or state. So the corporation is for profit. So they need to make a profit.
Imagine that.
But back to what Occupy Corporatism, it was just a news website. I wanted to cover as many topics as I could, and I basically write in about anything I can get my hands on. And I just wanted people to know what was really going on when you go to these mainstream news websites, and they give you half-truths, or they give you partial, or, they just fabricate. They just lie right through their teeth.
Some sources say. We know what that one's about.
Yeah, that's their little tagline when they're making stuff up. They say, some sources say. Check and see who those sources are, and if you can't find out who the actual source is, I've learned to be suspect. I would hope that all of you listening would be skeptical. Do the research yourself. I do the research every single day, and I dig into it. I want to find out who, what, where, when, why, how, who funded this, who's putting this together. And it's always the same players. It's always Bill and Melinda Gates. They keep popping up. It's always the World Health Organization. It's always the UN.
You got to look at who's hiding in the shadows and what they have to gain from it. And obviously, most of it's corporatocracy. It's money. That's why we say occupy corporatism. We're going to get rid of corporatism. I mean, really, that's one of the main issues in this country. That's where the bankers come from. That's where Wall Street comes from. That's where all of these things are actually stemming from. It's profits. It's driven by us. We're the people. We should take control.
Exactly. And so I wanted to bring to your attention a few of the articles that I've written this week and that I thought were extremely important. And I don't know if you happened to miss it, but if you did, I wrote an article, The $43 Trillion Bankster Lawsuit and the Mysterious Murder of 2 New York Toddlers. Now, I know that everybody's been talking about this, and I'm not going to go into the unfortunate murder of the 2 children, because we've still got details coming out, and it's sketchy. Initial reports are conflicting, and I will definitely dig into that. But what I want to get to is the actual lawsuit itself. It was filed in district court in New York, and if you go to occupycorporatism.com, you can actually read the court documents, the summons, and the petition.
These are the real documents, all 800 pages. This is a real thing.
Yeah, 858. And ladies and gentlemen, I went through all 858 pages.
This is the lawsuit of the century. Every single news source should be talking about this. And if they're not, you should really take a look and see who these people are, because they're probably not on your side.
Right, and don't just trust somebody who throws up an article that they didn't write in-house themselves. This is 858 pages, but this is worth it because this is the lawsuit that is going to bring down the banks, okay? We've all been talking about how did they do this? We wanted to know what the smoking gun was. This is what they did, okay? The purpose of the lawsuit is seeking legal remedy because these banksters took your money. When you signed that mortgage note, they took that money that you were given or that you were loaned, and they put it in an offshore account, digitally in an offshore account, okay? And then every time you made a payment on that mortgage, they took that money and digitally relocated it offshore. And then they took your house. Mm-hmm. This is the problem.
Mm-hmm. And these are counterinsured. All of these houses actually, as we're finding out, are counterinsured for 4, 5, 6 times the value of the property. So they're actually gaining a massive amount of revenue by letting you go into default. And that's exactly what they were doing with Countrywide. They were intentionally putting people into loans they couldn't handle in order to get the default and therefore become the new owner of that property. Meanwhile, they're getting 4 to 6 times the value of the property plus the property itself and forcing people out onto the street.
Right. And they used MERS. Listen, folks, a computer cannot make a signature. DARPA is working really hard right now on autonomous robots, and I write about it all the time on our website, occupycorporatism.com, but they're not really up and running yet. The synthetic police force is coming. It's just not coming tomorrow, okay? So a computer system named MERS is signing all of these documents, and they can't do that. That's illegal. That's fraud. Right there. That alone, the fact that 95% of these mortgages were signed by a computer, that alone is enough to get these banksters, okay? These technocrats.
It's much larger than that, though, isn't it?
It is much larger because they violated consumer and homeowner protection statutes. They foreclosed on properties and accepted monies for assets that don't exist. Okay? You've had your home and you've had it paid off since 1988, and then some guy sticks a foreclosure notice on your front door because your house was securitized as well. And how many securities, how many properties were bundled up into these securities and then sold on the global stock market? Well, if you're not sure, ask yourself this question. Why is Ben Bernanke at $85 billion a month buying mortgage-backed securities indefinitely? Let me give you the answer. Because nobody knows how long it's going to take to acquire all of the property that was securitized in this bank fraud from the banksters buying back the properties. So when Ben Bernanke becomes the biggest landowner in the United States, they're not sure if it's going to take a month or a year or a decade or maybe a couple of decades. But we're talking about the names and faces that we all know and love. J.P. Morgan Chase, Wells Fargo, Wachovia, Citigroup, U.S. Bancorp, Ally Financial, which some of these banks are trying to acquire Ally Financial right now. And Ally Financial has been complaining that they've been getting hacked by these nameless, faceless hackers from supposed Iran, right? We've got One West, which is heavily invested in by George Soros. We've got HSBC, Deutsche Bank. Deutsche Bank is the biggest profiteer off of the mortgage-backed securities. And, by the way, just for a side note, maybe a little bit of trivia for you, when Occupy Wall Street was hanging out in Zuccotti Park and they wanted to have their own little elite meeting of the heads of Occupy Wall Street, they would do it in the Deutsche Bank atrium. I find that a conflict of interest. But you know what? I'm a farmer. I'm just planting some seeds. Maybe something will grow. The PNC Bank, Bank of America, Bear Stearns, who got thrown under the bus, right? And Lehman Brothers got thrown under the bus, right?
And of course, Countrywide turned into Bank of America, which they're still really, really heavily toxic assets there, and they're having a hard time getting out from underneath that. I think that's something that we all should look at as well.
Bank of America is broke, okay, folks? They've been selling off their non-core assets since 2007. So to me, they're broke. Citigroup, same difference. They've been selling off their non-core assets for the last 2 years. They're broke. If you have money in their account, thanks to Sentinel Management Group and the ruling that happened in August 9th of this year, your money in your private checking account is up for grabs. So if I were you, and I'm not a financial advisor, I'm just a regular citizen of America, and if I've got my money in an institution that is allowed by law now to take my private checking account and allocate it to any monies that they owe in debts or collateral on the stock market or anything, I'm going to take my money out of the bank. And I'm just saying, hey, you might want to think about that.
Well, in addition to that, think about this. Now, these banks are all being... these guys are all being indicated in this lawsuit for $43 trillion. So do you think they're not going to go bankrupt?
Oh, do you think that they're not going to fight this? We see a massive amount of propaganda on the internet saying how this lawsuit is fraudulent, that it's a hoax. people who work in the foreclosure industry coming out and saying that it's a hoax. Some of these people who are saying that work for the banksters. Yep. Okay? They're trying to get you to remodify your home. Meanwhile, they work for Bank of America. Mm-hmm. And they're trying to get money on the back end from Bank of America because they get paid every time you modify your home. Except Bank of America happens to lose your paperwork, and Bank of America gets a couple $1,000s every time you sign up for a refi or a mod. So they lose your paperwork. You got to refile. They make another couple $1,000s, and oops, they lose your paperwork again. Here you go to refile. They make another couple $1,000 to scam. It's a lie. It's just they're trying to get money from the government. And a couple of people in the foreclosure industry have figured this out and said to Bank of America, hey, I'll peddle this onto people who are desperate to stay in their homes because I'm considered an expert in foreclosures, and I've got a website that everybody likes to go to. So I'm going to do this for you, and you just give me a kickback. I won't say anything about it. I'll interview a couple times on my website and make it look all legit. Guys, if you see somebody hanging out interviewing the banks, walk away. The internet, the best thing about the internet is you can click on that little red X and go to another website.
Mm-hmm. You should always consider your source. You should always do your own research. That's really what we represent. That's what this is about. This is what the American people should do. They think you're so stupid that you're not going to read source links or go somewhere else. And most people, unfortunately, do see things on face value. A lot of people even just read the title and they move on. They think they know something about that article. And what we're trying to say is you need to do the research as well. Don't just trust any one person. Go out there and find out. Go through those source links. If it's not valid, step away.
That's one of the things that I want you guys to understand. And we're kind of harping on this, but when I sit down to write an article, I look at as many articles on the subject as I can get my hands on. And when I quote from another source, I put that in there. And when I find a document from the UN, or the documents I found on HIV being a bioweapon from 1962, when the Congress gave the Department of Defense and the National Institutes of Health millions of dollars, which today's standards would be billions of dollars, to create an immune suppressive cancer, which when you look under a microscope looks exactly identical to the HIV virus. Mm-hmm. I want you to see that document, and I source link it in my article. But you know what? Don't trust me solely. Check through my source links and keep going. You know, if you find something of interest, keep going, because this is about finding out this convoluted mess that they've created, and it is absolutely convoluted. And they're coming at you on every single angle. This is a controlled habitat. None of this is real. We're in a big theater watching a movie, and and as soon as you think something's real, you'll find out that it's not. And then as soon as you think something is real after that, you find out that it's not. And that's exactly what's happening with this $43 trillion lawsuit. This, ladies and gentlemen, is legitimate. And this is the lawsuit of the century. And don't think that J.P. Morgan Chase, Deutsche Bank, and all the other technocrats aren't spending millions of dollars, maybe even close to $1 trillion, to get this out of the way. They're murdering babies because somebody on CNBC puts this lawsuit up on the website, and then the next day it's taken down.
Exactly.
And they're putting out all this propaganda over the internet to try and get people to not believe in this, because as evil as they are, there's an equal and opposite reaction. It's physics. And this is the thing that we've all been waiting for. I'm not saying put all your eggs in one basket, but I'm saying that we need to get behind the people who have been brave enough to stand up and say, you know what, we're not going to take this anymore. You threw us out of our home. We don't deserve this. Nobody called me up and said, hey, is it okay if I bundle up all of these loans all down your block and sell them on the stock market as AAA rated good credit, and then screw over not only you and everybody on your block, but a couple of countries that buy this? No, nobody called me up. Did they call you up? I don't think so. So we need to stand behind this lawsuit. And what this lawsuit explains is that this was the Ponzi scheme of all Ponzi schemes. Okay? This is the largest scheme in U.S. history where domestic banking institutions on an international basis conspire together for the purpose of engaging a worldwide scheme to steal, rob, and convert personal property, money, and proceeds of such assets of the plaintiffs herein. That's a direct quote from that complaint, and I sourced it in my article, and it's 858 pages. But folks, if you're going to sit down and read any 858 page book, I would suggest that you read this complaint. We should all have this. We should all have this memorized, maybe.
Well, this represents the people. Every single man, woman, and child has been affected by this, whether they know it or not. And they are spending, I think that they are spending billions of dollars to cover this up, because when we figure out what they've done and it's in the public eye, it's going to be the most amazing thing ever. All of the mainstream media is doing everything they can to bury this, and they are paid well.
They're just not talking about it.
Well, yes, but that's why they're getting paid a lot of money not to say something. Because this is in federal court. This is
right.
The real thing.
Yeah, ladies and gentlemen, I get a lot of phone calls and a lot of emails. You won't find it in state court because it's in federal court right now. Okay, so go look it up in federal court.
Yeah, it got escalated. They decided it was worthy of federal court, and so now it's been moved forward. This thing is real.
So, ladies and gentlemen, OccupyCorporatism.com. Go look at my article, The $43 Trillion Bankster Lawsuit and the Mysterious Murder of 2 New York Toddlers. And like I said, you can read the actual document from my article. When you click on the court documents, it's a hyperlink, and you can read the 558 pages. And I can't say it enough. Please, ladies and gentlemen, just read it for yourself and make a decision. Don't just believe some blog that you're reading or some forum that you went to, or even the chatter on Facebook, okay? Because we know that the government fakes Twitter accounts, Facebook accounts. Any retard, any schlub can put up a website, okay? And they can say whatever they want. And if they got a couple bucks, they can make it look really good, okay? So double check and be skeptical, have an open mind, but question. Keep questioning, because that's going to keep you informed.
Who's in the shadows? Exactly.
And as far as questioning and being informed, I wrote an article this week, The Global Collaboration of Megacities Implement Agenda 21 to Prepare Populations. And I think that this is extremely important. Agenda 21 cannot ever be overlooked enough, okay? Our president is leading a campaign to invest $150 billion into green technologies. Meanwhile, he's giving $60 million of taxpayer money to his best friend, Valerie Jarrett, the other half of his brain, his right-hand Agenda 21 crazy lady, who had a corporation called Abound Solar that went bankrupt and is now under criminal investigation in Colorado. Ladies and gentlemen, Valerie Jarrett took that $60 million of taxpayer money and put it in her little pocket and walked away. That's your money she's got in her pocket, okay? Thanks to Obama, thanks to her friend Obama. And as far as Agenda 21, we're seeing this all over the country. And why are we seeing it all over the country? Because we've got Mayor Bloomberg of New York, and he's building these little tiny shoeboxes, okay, 222 square foot apartments, and that's including your kitchen and your closet, okay?
And you.
And you.
That's smaller than a jail cell, I think.
Yes, they are. They're glorified. Imagine a jail cell with some hotel furnishings, all right? That's what they want you to live in.
Pull your chair out of the wall, too. Wonderful.
Exactly. So Mayor Bloomberg started this C40 Cities Climate Leadership Group, okay? And 40 of the most influential mayors from 40 major cities got together, and they decided secretly that they were going to implement Agenda 21 policies incrementally in their cities Did anybody get a phone call who lives in New York or Boston or San Francisco? Did you guys get a call from your mayors and ask you if it's okay if they built glorified shoeboxes and packaged them for you to go ahead and live in if you're single or if you are a elderly person? I don't think so. I didn't get a phone call that I'm not allowed to live in my house because it's too roomy. I've got to live in this apartment cell and then pay $1,200 a month for it. But in New York, in Kips Bay, they're 275 to 300 square foot. Okay, what is that?
Nothing.
In San Francisco, they're 150 square feet. Ladies and gentlemen, that is the size of your parking space.
That's 10 feet by 15 feet, everybody. 10 feet by 15 feet, and that's where you live.
And just to add insult to injury, in Boston, they built 450 square foot apartments for families.
Wow.
Okay? They'll give you a little extra room if you got some extra people. Oh, and by the way, it's built on the Boston Wharf. So at least you get to look at the bay.
Unless there's a hurricane.
Unless Harp moves a hurricane up the East Coast again, which, by the way, I've heard that they're planning on another superstorm.
Well, that'll be 3 in a row.
There's buzz in the mainstream media about that. So these units are incredible. It's incredible, ladies and gentlemen. But that's Agenda 21. We got stack 'em and pack 'ems. We've got these skyscraper type buildings, and you've got 222, 300 foot, 450 square foot jail cells, and then you've got these vertical farms that are coming up and down the skyscrapers where all your food is going to be grown. Or I've even seen them constructed kind of like a Ferris wheel, where you would have each level would be the orchards and the vegetables. And ladies and gentlemen, they're not going to be moving food around anymore once they've got these 11 mega regions already situated. So basically, when the vertical farm runs out of food, so does your mega region.
Wow. And there's no place for you to have a refrigerator in your house, so you're completely dependent on them and your food supply.
Oh, yeah, the designers of these glorified shoeboxes, they're saying, hey, people are expected to work outside their home, socialize outside their home, dine outside their home. So what do they need? They just need a place to sleep.
Right, so you're just nothing but a consumer, essentially.
Well, and a biochemical automaton. You go to work, you eat your dinner outside your home, which, who does that? Who can afford to go out to dinner every single day?
Well, who wants to eat the junk that's available? We're talking about GMO food everywhere.
Well, yeah, they've got to grow food that will be able to withstand all of the climate change byproduct by the geoengineering that they're putting out there.
Aluminum resistant, drought resistant, whatever else resistant.
Thank you, Monsanto.
Yeah. So
the C40, this group of mayors that got together, they've actually expanded since 2007 when they formed this to 58 cities. Okay, and they're using Agenda 21 regulations to monitor their internal global populations, internally through the cities, but globally because this is a global venture, decrease CO2 emissions, and affect the global GDP. Because according to a case study produced by the C40, they've already outlined 4,734 measures that they believe and have already implemented that are good for their cities. Okay, they want these cities to be the example, all right, for everyone else. So Mayor Bloomberg and all these other mayors who've gotten together, they're saying that the world's largest cities account for 70% of global CO2 emissions. And let me just explain this to everyone here. CO2 has no bearing on the temperature of the planet, period. If you look at the actual independent studies, CO2 does not affect the temperature. It doesn't heat up the planet. It doesn't cool down the planet. It has no bearing. What does have a bearing on the temperature of the planet is the reflective metals that they're putting up with the solar geoengineering, the aluminum, the barium, which is reflecting the sunlight out away from the Earth and cooling off the Earth. That is actually, ladies and gentlemen, that is affecting our temperature, our climate, our weather patterns, our weather systems. But CO2, your little car, not so much. So, ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to go over another article that I wrote this week, because we're seeing a lot going on with cybersecurity. And cybersecurity, we all know it's a hoax. Okay, it's a way for them to control the internet, but they don't want to just come out and say, "Hey, we're going to control the internet." They don't want you to wake up in the morning and realize that you can't go to your favorite website because you've been blocked out, or that you've got all these new controls, or that Google isn't there anymore. I mean, people freaked out earlier this week when YouTube was down for 2 hours. People thought, "Oh my God, it's happening. They've shut down the internet."
Beta test.
So the U.S. and Canada are teaming up to use propaganda campaigns for public support of cybersecurity. Now, this is very important, ladies and gentlemen, because there's something that's been going on behind the scenes that Lou Dobbs was brave enough to talk about and got fired for, or he
well,
quit.
Essentially, yeah, but he was. You got to realize he was the senior partner at CNN.
Right. And
We're
so
not
he
just
started
talking
reporting.
about a reporter here. We're talking about a guy that was a co-owner of the company.
Right. So he starts talking about the North American Union.
Mm-hmm.
And a couple of shots were fired at his house. And so, was he fired or did he quit?
Well, I think that essentially what happened was that he quit under a certain amount of pressure from some people that wanted to remain nameless. And Larry King actually was under some serious pressure as well. He actually backed off of quite a few interviews in that same week.
Not Larry King, the show host.
Yeah. He was at the same time getting pressurized. Yeah, he was absolutely.
Oh, wow. Wow. So the North American Union is alive and well, and one of the ways that they're implementing it is cybersecurity. So the U.S. and Canada are getting together, sharing information. They've already written a new action plan to bring together the Department of Homeland Security and the Department of Homeland Security's equivalent in Canada, which is the Public Safety Canada. They're going to improve digital infrastructure together. One of the ways in which they're doing it is using propaganda. And ladies and gentlemen, if you go to my website and you look at this article, you can watch a couple of commercials from DHS's new propaganda campaign to convince you that they're nameless, faceless hackers that Napolitano admitted last week that she's trying to hire. And I'll get into that in a minute. This Stop Think campaign actually has these little thumbs and these little fingers with smiley faces on them, and it's all cute and funny. Oh, look at me, I'm a finger, and I'm going to tell you how to work the internet. My son saw that and he thought it was hilarious until I explained to him that it's government propaganda, and he said, "Oh no, Mommy, that's really bad."
Absolutely.
So you can actually watch a couple of these commercials, and this, ladies and gentlemen, this is how dumb that they think you are. Okay? But one of the ways that they're using this propaganda is through the corporations that have come on board with this. And we're talking about AT&T, Costco, Experian, Facebook, Google, Intel, McAfee, the good old Microsoft, PayPal, Symantec, VeriSign. When you go to sign at the bank, and when you go to do any digital signing, VeriSign, they check you out behind the scenes. They're also in charge and on board with DHS and working with DHS. Visa, Walmart, and Yahoo. And in Canada, they've got their own version of the propaganda, which is called Get Cyber Safe. And this campaign defines for the public all the risks that cellular phones, online banking, social networks, private emails, YouTube, downloading files, sharing files, and when you're downloading them, online shopping, these are all things that are bad. Okay? And so we need to protect not only our digital infrastructure for our government, but digital infrastructure for our citizens. And so it's up to the citizens to control their activity on the Internet.
But now, I want to make sure that this is straight. Now, are they essentially saying that you need to use the government's Internet and the government's websites in order to stay safe?
Oh, yes. Oh, a lot of people don't realize this, and I wrote an article. It's called U.S. Ignite. And a lot of people, even in the alternative media, are not talking about this. When Obama signed the executive order a couple of months ago allocating all of the broadband in the United States to the government, and so the government has control over all of the broadband, that was not arbitrary, folks. And a lot of people overlooked that because they didn't understand the implications. The implications are U.S. Ignite. There is, behind the scenes, a government-sponsored network, internet network, which will replace the network that we use now. And everything will be siphoned through the government. And if they don't want you to look at it or know about it, you don't get to see it. It's Chinese style.
It also means that they're intercepting all of your emails. They're tracking you, whether you like cookies or not. It must be going through that new hub that they've created in Utah.
Oh, the Spy Center?
Yeah, that must be how they're doing it.
That is one way that they're doing it. Another way is that they have done these massive land grabs in Africa, and they're miles and miles of satellites. And this December, we're going to have the Telecommunications Union, the UN's version of global government-sponsored internet, basically.
Wow. That's where IBP6 is going.
Yeah, I would say that.
Wow.
And so they're starting now, ladies and gentlemen. They're starting to prepare you. They're using propaganda. They're trying to get you to be scared of whatever could be on the other side of that screen. Let me tell you, folks, the only person on the other side of that screen is some guy sitting in Virginia or Utah or Washington, D.C., whose job it is to monitor your activity on the Internet. And they work for the U.S. government. That's who's on the other end of the screen. Whenever we see a nameless, faceless hacker show up, it's always in favor of something that the government can use as propaganda against us. The U.S. banks being hacked? Yeah, right. The U.S. banks and also the global banks across the globe. I'm sorry to be redundant, but the U.S. banks being hacked has a secret agenda behind it. These technocrats, they want to build a separate network where all the banking information is on this network. And you and I don't have access to it. Oh yeah, it looks the same when you go on their website and you do your online banking transactions. But you don't have direct access to your account anymore. In fact, you don't have direct access to any of your banking information anymore because it's on a separate network. Because, oh my God, Anonymous is hacking in, or Iran is hacking in, and we have to protect this financial information.
I think it's more like they don't want you to see what they're doing while they're committing their fraud in the background.
Exactly. That's what these nameless, faceless hackers are there for. They're there for the purpose solely to create the situation that would justify their use of creating a situation where they would need this other network. Okay? That's what propaganda is there for. That's what these fake terrorist plots. Oh, thank God the FBI was there. They foiled another plot that they started.
Like the FBI was there in the Murrah building while they were watching it? Yeah.
They plant everything, they blow it up, they blame it on somebody else. They find somebody, they set him up with all the materials that he needs to build the bomb, they videotape him, they give him a piece of paper and a pencil, have him write down some statements, drive him to the location, the bomb doesn't go off, bam, thank God the FBI was there, they foiled another plot that they started. Same thing with cybersecurity, guys. Cybersecurity is simply a propaganda tool. That's all it is. They're putting all these things in place. Obama is signing over massive amounts of power to Janet Napolitano and the DHS. But really, it's U.S. Ignite that you should be concerned about. It's the UN's Telecommunications Union that you really should be concerned about. Go put that in a Google search, because they're meeting in December of this year, and they are going to decide whether or not you have access to internet. And if you do have access to internet, what type of internet you have access to. That's what you should be concerned about. All of these points that I brought up tonight, you should definitely look them up. Don't believe me, please. I'm the first one to tell you, don't believe me. Because the technocrats, the banks, this isn't just about banks, okay? And this isn't just about cybersecurity, and this isn't just about putting you in a shoebox where you're going to pay $1,200 a month for 222 square feet. This is about resources, folks. We see what's happening in Greece, and we say, this is terrible. These people are beyond destitute. But Greece is rife with gold. And Greece has massive amounts of natural gas deposits and oil. And don't think for a moment that the technocrats don't want control over the areas of this earth that have resources, natural resources, that they can benefit from monetarily. So when you see them going after a country in the Eurozone, or the Eurozone itself, I mean, Tony Blair came out, last week, and said, hey, the EU, they need a president.
One president.
One president to rule them all, right? The EU and the European Council also decided last week that they are going to have one person overseeing all banking transactions except for the central banks, because we all know who controls them anyway. Mm-hmm. So this one person, this one schmo who's sitting behind a desk somewhere is going to make a decision on whatever the banks do in the Eurozone, period. And then Tony Blair's coming out and saying that all of these sovereign nations, ladies and gentlemen, the Eurozone is a conglomerate of sovereign nations. They don't need one guy looking over them. They are independent sovereign nations, right?
Yeah, they have their own belief systems. They have their own culture and history and heritage.
Their own constitutions, their own rights and laws.
Absolutely.
Their own leaders.
Right.
So just because they are in the Eurozone, which is a monetary definition, just because they adhere to this one form of currency, then they should have one leadership? Does this make any sense to anybody out there? This is what it looks like when the technocrats take over. They are too close. They are way too close. Let me just read you a quote from my article. And this article is called Technocratic Control Over Greek Gold is Reason for Destruction of Economy. Okay, folks? Overseas, Germany's central bank has neglected to audit the country's estimated 3,400 tons of gold reserves. This resource would be desirable to the technocrats at this crucial time, when they are endeavoring to implode fiat currencies in the Eurozone. It's not just the euro that's imploding. It's also these countries' individual currencies, their individual fiat that is going down the tubes. And those gold stores, that 3,400 tons of gold, are in the hands of the Federal Reserve, headed by Ben Bernanke.
A private corporation, by the way.
With private owners.
Who is also taking all of your land and grabbing that up for themselves as well.
Right, they're taking your homes, they're taking Greek gold and hiding it. This estimated value is 190 billion, billion, in the possession of central bankers like Ben Bernanke. This is what it's about, folks. They don't care about your car. They don't care about your home. They want the physical land. They want the resources that you have. And I'm not talking about you individually. I'm talking about us as a nation, okay? Our constitutional republic founded on this actual physical soil that you're sitting on right now. That's what I'm talking about. I'm talking about the fact that we have massive amounts of natural gas reserves here in the United States, don't we?
Yeah, absolutely. but a lot of people are being paid not to explore those. And it's no different than the corn market where, 39% of all of our actual corn is being reallocated to the ethanol industry. But ethanol costs more money to make than what you get out of it.
And it puts out more carbon. Even though I told you folks, carbon has no bearing on the planet. Actually, the production of ethanol, the transfer from corn to ethanol, exudes massive amounts of carbon. Mm-hmm. More than you could ever exude coming out of the back of your car.
And its byproduct, high fructose corn syrup, anyone?
Right. That you brought up a really good point, and I'd like you to explain to everyone, because we have some time here. I want you to explain to everyone what's going on with the corn and the coming food crisis.
Well, here is something that's very, very amazing, really. A lot of people that I've been talking to now, these are people that are major players as far as the agricultural industry is concerned. They're worried because right now there are dairy farms going out of business everywhere in the Midwest. And here's why. The corn that they have, they actually had a decent year. The real problem is that it's vitamin deficient because of the drought.
Vitamin K.
Vitamin K is one of the major constituents that they need, especially for the dairy industry, because it provides the nutrients that the cows need in order to put out whole milk, actually balanced milk that actually includes all of the other essential nutrients and minerals, but they get that through what they're eating. So essentially what's happening here is that because they don't have the vitamin K to convert other minerals within their own body, the milk itself is not coming out right. It's deficient. They are having a problem with that because the available, viable corn that's actually useful to these farmers is almost non-existent. It's all been already sold on the futures market. It's already spoken for. So those grain feeders, they're empty. All of that grain that they've got in there is nutrient deficient corn. So the farmers are having to slaughter. I mean, when I say thousands, I mean multiple tens of thousands of animals right now. And that's going to happen all throughout this winter because they can't afford to feed the cows.
Now, this is a false positive because we're going to have an influx in the meat that we'll be able to purchase, but then we're not going to be able to have the other products, like the dairy products.
Well, everything is made with one of these products one way or another, okay? I mean, how many baked goods come, through
with milk and butter,
or cheese or derivatives of such? I mean, when you talk about partial chemicals and derivative chemicals, the list is amazing, okay? So anything from bread and cheese and milk to cereal and all of that stuff, they all use the same basic constituent materials. So what we're talking about is tens of thousands of livestock killed, okay? And then we're talking about nutrient deficient food that's still going out, and that we're going to eat that. And then the shortages are going to last for a long time. Now they're going to have a lot of meat, a lot of beef. They're going to have to sell it. But what happens on the other side of that is once they're done with this process, then next year they're not going to have any producing cattle.
Now, how long does it take? You invest in a cow, you feed the cow for 2 years, right?
Well, yeah, but they don't really come into their production for at least 3, and that's the thing. So let's say they slaughter, 100,000 animals. It's going to take them 3 years to get that production back. It's going to take them 3 years to really bring that back to where it is. And I don't know, folks. What if we have another drought next year? Because ultimately, that's what these corporations want. They want you to be dependent. They want you to pay more for food because they're going to make a lot of money on the profit. They want you to eat GMO food. They don't care. They don't care about you. That's the thing. Now, they, of course, eat organic food, and they eat it from private farms and small places in rural mountain villages. We all know that, and, that's what they get. But what we get? GMO, Walmart, Monsanto.
So we've got this situation where we've got 39% of the corn yields being sent to ethanol production. Okay,
it's forced,
and yeah, it's a mandate by law. But then we've got this nutrient deficient corn. Why are we, ladies and gentlemen? Cattle were not made to eat corn, but this isn't just cattle. This is chickens.
Sure, chickens, hogs, anything. All of this stuff is traded on by the CME Group, by the way, guys. You've got to take a look at this. All of these things are all traded on the futures market. It's the Chicago Mercantile Exchange. All of these things are going to be affected. Now, these guys right now, they're buying, because they know all of the prices are going to go way through the roof. These guys are making a ton of money.
So they're profiting on the fact that we're not going to be able to eat.
We're going to starve, and they're going to make billions and billions of dollars.
And this is real, folks. This is actually happening. I know that when I go to the store now and I go to buy butter, it's 70 cents to $1 more than it used to be. If I go to buy 12 slices of cheese, it's $1 more than it should be, or at least 70 cents more than it should be. And I'm seeing that now in November.
Well,
so what am I going to see in February?
Sure. Think about this. Milk at $6 a gallon, and that's just the start. Gasoline in California is $6 a gallon. I mean, really, it doesn't take a rocket scientist to add A, B, and C.
Right, but let's focus in on the food, because we're talking about this false positive where you're going to have a massive amount of steaks and hamburger, and but if you want bread takes milk to bake, so you can't have any bread with your burger. And then if you want cheese on it, cheese is a byproduct of the cows from the milk, so you can't have cheese with it, or you're going to pay up the yin-yang in order to get the bread and the cheese. So that $6 burger that you go to buy at a restaurant now just turned into a $12 or $20 burger. And the quality is no different. It's just that the source, the supply is limited. And so they're going to have to charge premium prices. And it's just going to escalate, right?
Well, yes. Now, in the spring is when you're going to get hit really hard with those numbers, because when our consumer market starts ramping up, there's not going to be anything behind it.
Right, and that's the problem. Like you said, the grain feeders are empty.
Well, they're empty because it's not viable corn. They're going to feed us that non-viable, nutrient-deficient food. I mean, trust me,
they will. Well, thanks
to
Codex Alimentarius, what we're supposed to be eating is nutrient-deficient food.
Yes.
Because nutrients are bad for you. The UN, Codex Alimentarius, says that your body does not need nutrients. Okay? And this is absolutely ridiculous, because we eat food, we take in the RNA from the food, we take in the nutrients and the minerals from that food, and that's how our body builds on the cellular level, and that's how we stay healthy. Okay, folks? Nutrient deficient food is like running your car that takes gasoline on soda. And I mean that literally, because soda is one of the worst things you could possibly put in your body. But if you put it in your gas tank, watch and see what happens to your car. As soon as the actual gasoline runs out and it's running on pure soda, or maybe even before then when the mixture starts getting in through, watch and see what your engine does, because that's what your body's doing internally.
Yeah.
So we have a problem here where our food and our drink is nutrient deficient, and now we have a problem where we're not even taking care of the animals that are producing the food that we're eating. And it's not just meat. It's not just dairy products. It's chicken. It's pork.
Yeah, it's everything. And it's all traded in the stock market, and they're making just billions and billions and billions of dollars on it.
So, ladies and gentlemen, there are so many things going on right now. And we will definitely be back next week to cover more of these topics. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. I'm your host, Susanne Posel, and if you have any questions or any comments, you can go check out our website, occupycorporatism.com. You can join our Facebook and leave as many comments as you want, and we will see you next week.
Thank you very much for joining us.
This has been the Region 10 Report, a weekly broadcast on the Prepper Podcast Network. You can read all of our articles at occupycorporatism.com. Keep up with us daily on the Pete Santilli Show. Special thanks to the band No Messiah, who provides all of our music for the show. We'll see you here next week for another episode of the Region 10 Report.